me ask you something. If home prices were really coming down, wouldn't we be seeing it clearly by now? We've had higher mortgage rates for quite a while. Inventory has improved in certain parts of the country, and buyers aren't bidding aggressively the way they were 2 or 3 years ago. So it makes sense that a lot of people are thinking, okay, this has to be the year prices finally fall. But once you step back from the noise and focus on the numbers, the situation isn't as simple as it feels. Yes, the market has shifted. Yes, things have cooled from the frenzy we experienced, but cooling off and coming down are two different things. So today, let's look at what the numbers are actually saying and what that means for you if you're buying or selling in 2026. So no drama or fear-based predictions, just data and perspective. So number one, let's start with what the national data is actually telling us. The Federal Housing Finance Agency, or FHFA, releases a quarterly house price index that tracks home values across the country. In its most recent report for Q1 2026, prices are still up compared to the same time last year. The growth rate is much slower than what we saw during the pandemic surge, but it's still positive. Now, let's look at Zillow. Zillow's home value index also show that U.S. home values are slightly higher than they were a year ago. Again, we're talking about modest growth, not dramatic or overheated, but not negative territory either. Then we have Redfin 2026 housing forecast. Redfin is projecting roughly 1% price growth nationally this year. It's steady and measured, and it lines up with what we're seeing in other reports. That's very different environment from 2021, and it's also very different from the collapse we saw in 2008. So when you step back and look at the broader picture, the pattern is consistent. Growth has cooled, things are more balanced, but prices aren't falling nationally. And number two, why does it feel like prices should be falling? So higher mortgage rates hold demand, yes, but they also locked many homeowners into low-rate mortgages from a few years ago. That limited the number of people willing to sell because giving up a 3% rate for a 6 or 7 is a big jump. So supply never surged the way some expected. In many markets, we're actually seeing still dealing with relatively tight inventory. Not extreme shortages like before, but not an oversupply either. That balance is what's holding prices steady. And number three, what could happen in the rest of 2026? Looking ahead, most forecasts remain conservative but steady. Redfin expects about 1% growth nationally this year. Zillow anticipates modest appreciation as well, and the FHFA data continues to show year-over-year gains. When several independent reports show the same trend, it doesn't mean every city's experiencing the exact same conditions. However, local conditions can vary depending on inventory levels, job growth, and buyer demand in the area. But nationally, the data does not support the idea of a broad housing downturn. What we're seeing is normalization. The market has shifted from a rapid acceleration to a steadier pace, and that's actually healthier long term. And number four, what it means for buyers and sellers. So what does it mean for buyers? If you're waiting for a dramatic drop in home prices, the data suggests that may not be the most likely outcome. However, buyers today may have advantages that didn't exist a few years ago, like less bidding competition, more inventory choices, and more negotiation flexibility. So in other words, you may not see lower prices, but you may see better terms. And in many cases, that can have just as much of an impact on your overall investment. Now, what does this mean for sellers? For sellers, this is no longer name your price market. Pricing strategy, presentation, and preparation matters. Buyers are comparing more carefully now because they have options. That means positioning is everything. The sellers who win in this market are the ones who price realistically from the start and present their home in a way that stands out. So, are home prices finally coming down in 2026? Nationally, the data says no. What we're seeing instead is stabilization. The rapid run-up we experienced a few years ago has leveled off, but broad price declines just aren't showing up in the national numbers. And if you're wondering what this means for your home value or your buying power, let's take a closer look at your specific market. You can reach out and schedule a one-on-one session with me, and we'll build a plan that makes sense for you. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss future market updates and practical real estate insights.